Join our knowledgeable hosts as they dive into the captivating universe of comic books, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Get ready for vibrant discussions and a shared enthusiasm for all things superhero and beyond. A comic podcast straight from the panels. This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is Alex, pen name Lewis, the creator, founder, the man of the hour of Disabled Comics. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, Ryan? Hey, guys, how are you?
Not much. I know we were busy at Fan Expo Chicago this weekend, but you were also, from the pictures on your Instagram, you were busy at your own Comic-Con as well.
I was at my local Comic-Con. It's called Fairfax Comic-Con. I've gone four times. This is my fifth time, but it was my first time as a vendor in the show.
Yeah, that was, and what really was awesome was you were decked out in full costume, which looked extremely hot if there was anything like what we experienced at Fan Expo Chicago with not enough AC.
It did get a little steamy in there, to be completely honest, but it honestly could have been worse. But
exactly.
I got a great response from the suit, which is actually technically not even done. That's not even like the final version of the suit. But I got a great response from it. People coming over to my table, wanting to take pictures, wanting to know about what I'm doing there. And so I honestly, this weekend could not have gone any better.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to hear it. Which brings us to the whole point, is who are you and why comic books? Why did you jump into the pool with the rest of us as we're all trying to realize that we're never getting out of it?
Well, as you said when you introduced me, my name is Lewis. Pen name Lewis. I go by Alex by most people. And why comic books? Well, I've always been a fan of of comic books, of superheroes. The whole superhero genre, be it comic books, TV, movies, everybody has their favorite, right? Be it DC or Marvel or indie from like Image or something like that. And I definitely have my own favorites as well. But as much as I do love those characters, I never felt like I could relate to any of those characters really, because the reason why my company is called Disabled Comics is because I am a disabled individual. I was born with spina bifida. I am paralyzed from the knees down, so I am a full-time wheelchair user. And this is something that since birth, I got my first wheelchair when I was 4.5 years old. And so, I really couldn't relate to any characters growing up. So, it was something that I always wanted, right? So when I was 17 years old, I started thinking about this character, like someone that was born with spina bifida, that acquired superpowers after like a tragic accident in a medical facility. And I wrote it down on like a piece of paper, and I was like, one day I'm going to do this. And about 2.5 years ago, I was like, you know what? I still want to do this, 9-10 years later. And if I'm going to do it, I have to do it now. And so I got to work. I found an amazing artist and an amazing writer that helped me flesh out the plot that I already had written, but I needed to stretch it out to fit a comic. So I had a writer help me out with that. and I think we created something that um, is, it could be read and enjoyed by anyone, which is, but I think that, if you know, lived have lived that life of, of a disabled person, you'll be able to find, even if you don't have spina bifida exactly, you my hope is that you can find some similarities to your the lived experience
Yeah,
um in your life, whoever it is that's reading the book.
definitely. And I mean, that's always key for any comic book lovers, is always trying to find yourself in the stories that we love. And definitely the amount of disabled characters within comics are slim. I mean, if you ask anyone right now, the only person that you could really ever pinpoint, and was really only temporary, is Oracle. That's the only one that really comes to mind right away. That's the only one that I could really think of.
It's funny you say that because I've talked to people about how slim it is, and for some reason Oracle never crossed my mind. For me, it was always like Daredevil or Professor X of the X-Men. Those
Yeah,
are
and
the
it's
two that
funny.
always stuck out.
It's funny too. I think Daredevil, it's almost like you forget. So you forget. Which is,
Right.
I think, was really good job at the writing.
I
The way
agree.
that they poise the character is that you really forget that he is blind just from
Blind.
his actions. Even Professor Xavier, I think
He was,
you obviously see it,
yeah,
but he's so well written and so poised with the way he talks and he addresses that it really escapes. And I think Oracle sticks out to me mostly because it was a depressive episode for her, losing that ability and really having to come to terms with the disability. And
right.
that was like a big plot versus just, well, they never really knew a life without it, per
Right,
se.
exactly. And when I was, trying to figure out, like, okay, what is, like, how, like, what is this comic book going to be? Like, I started out from the get-go. I was just like, this is going to be about someone that, that was born with a disability, that has never known, what someone like Oracle
Yeah,
has known, that their normal was that they were always disabled. I wanted to create a story with that, it's a different uh, lived experience.
definitely. Now, as you got into writing, and I think you jumped on at the perfect time. I think almost everyone we've interviewed in the past year, COVID was a very big motivator because a lot of people had finally had time to really sit down and think
Right,
about
exactly,
things and how their life was going. And I think that's,
exactly.
you've definitely seen the indie scene really pop up from that, which, I mean, it's not great, but it is great on both scales. Was writing always something that you pursued as a kid that made this easier? Or at some point you're like, let me just put a cap in it and then I'm going to go out because I'm going to do this job, but I always want to come back to writing.
So it was definitely something that I put I put a pin in it always, because I have always been a creative person. I was always into stuff like music and theater, and I am a cosplayer. So I like making costumes and props and doing things with my hands. And I got into leather craft for a while, and like, so, but writing and being it's always been something that I've been good at, just writing. And like in school, English was always my best subject.
Yeah.
So it was always in the back of my mind that, if something in the cosplay or leathercraft or whatever it was that I was doing at the time. If that doesn't pan out, I always have this that I can kind of like, maybe I could try it.
Yeah.
And it was always between like, okay, do I want to write like a book, like a novel, or do I want to do something like a comic book, which is equally, which is, funnily enough, is equally, if not almost more difficult to write than a novel, because
Yes.
it has to be, you're not just writing words on a page, you're also spacing it out between dialogue and action. It has to look like a script, like something that you see in a movie that you can then present to your illustrator.
Yeah.
So it is arguably even more difficult than writing a novel.
Yeah,
In
I
some
think a
ways.
lot of people that we talk to, when you really sit down and you write and you write and you write, and you give, if we were having this conversation about, oh, I'm gonna help you make this comic book, and you say, oh, here's 300 pages.
Yeah.
I now gotta tell you, well, you only get 22 pages. And how those 22 pages that we put in the comic book, maybe 5 pages of what you wrote are gonna actually go into this issue 1.
Right,
So yes,
exactly.
it.
Right. And so, I said earlier, I was not the only writer on this first issue that's out. I did hire a writer to kind of, I came up with the basic plot, plot A, plot B, plot C, plot C, but I couldn't get like how did you get from A to B to, like, I didn't have that middle.
Yeah.
And I needed help with that. So on my comic book, I've actually said, I've actually said written by, and then the writer that I hired. Same with issue 2 that's in production at the moment. It's in illustration. I'm gonna have her have their name on that comic. My name is on the comic as the creator.
Yeah.
But after issue 2, I do plan on trying to have more of a hand in the writing, because I've been able to study, and I think I have a little bit more of a grasp of, like, okay, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
So from issue 3 on, I'm gonna try to see what I can do. I'm actually we're gonna talk about this a little later, but I am working on something else right now that I am 100% writing.
Awesome. So I guess that in issue 1 and 2, when did it finally kind of click? Because obviously you said you ran out the plots, you just try and kind of look for the kind of how to edge it all together. When did it finally click in that, after reading it or kind of seeing what the writer was putting down, that you finally realized, okay, this is how the story's supposed to go? Was there a singular moment on issue 1 or 2 that made sense?
It was definitely after issue 2. It was, issue 1, I was kind of starting like, okay, like, so this is what it's supposed to look like. But then issue 2, it was like, even if I don't know how to do it exactly like this, what I can do and what I plan on doing is writing the story the way it would be written in like a novel, but then I'm going to actually space it out and, like, say dialogue here, blah blah blah, like, so I'm actually going to tear apart my quote unquote novel and make it into a comic book script.
Definitely. I guess one of the biggest things is there's not many people, especially writers and creators, that can go and kind of put themselves into a comic book and really know the struggles. I mean, most people are not going to know what it's like to have $100 billion in Gotham with unlimited resources to go patrol the night.
Right.
We fantasize about it, but we'll never know what that truly feels like. But you are obviously creating a character that the ins and outs, the struggles, like the wins, everything about it. I mean, was it somewhat freeing, kind of making?
It was definitely freeing, and I do want to make a correction, a slight correction. I do not know everything about it, because the one thing I do want the listeners to understand is that spina bifida it's on. I don't want to say it's on a spectrum, but that's the only way I can really describe it, because even though I am in a wheelchair and I'm paralyzed from the waist down, uh, there is like there are levels,
Yeah.
because there are levels of this disability. I have friends who have spina bifida that can walk just fine, but they have other issues, and more internally.
Yeah.
And I have other friends who have spina bifida who are paralyzed to a much higher degree. Like like with weaker arms, so they struggle with pushing. I've known a person that was paralyzed pretty much like at the neck, so like from the neck down. So like there's different levels. I've been personally very lucky that I am my paralyzed in the way that I am, because I've been able to do many things. The only difference, I am quote unquote normal. The only difference is I can't walk.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely. Now before we get into kind of what you're working on and kind of details about what you have put out,
Right.
where would you like to see this eventually go? Because I mean, there are some people that want to see this obviously at a comic book shop. I think that's the goal generally for most creators, is trying to get on distribution or in shops. But there are some people that want to see this go more, I want to say, like more kind of distributed like to the kids or to like a place of learning as well, so people can pick it up, and almost like Scholastic and stuff like that,
Right.
like stuff that can really kind of impact.
Yeah.
It sounds like you kind of want a little bit of both.
I do want a little bit of both. I actually have a little bit of a story to tell about this weekend. So this weekend at Fairfax Comic Con, I noticed that a lot of the people that were coming over to take a look at my book and all the other things that I was selling, because I have posters and stickers and patches as well that I'm selling. But the people that were coming over to my table to really take a look at it were like teachers and people that worked in hospitals.
Yep.
I legitimately, there was a one of the people that bought a copy of my book was a principal of a school that drove 2 hours just to be at that con.
That's
And
awesome.
I don't think he knew he was going to find my table.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't. But he did, and he was very moved by the story, and so yeah, I definitely want kids to see it. But it would be nice to be in a comic shop.
Definitely.
I'm still kind of learning the ins and outs of how to get into comic shops, because I mean, I'm sure everybody listening is aware there's the big two, Marvel and DC, and that's what most comic book shops carry. And but there are a number of people that carry independent.
Yep.
So I'm still kind of learning the ins and outs of that, trying to figure out, okay, so where can I go for that? Because I am based in Virginia, and there's only one comic book that's like just down the street from me that does carry independent. But I'm trying to, before I really get into it, I want to see like what else is there.
Yeah.
Who else? Who am I missing?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think that's a solid plan. The comic distribution is complicated. I think everyone can tell you. We all know the the ins and outs of Diamond's distribution and Lunar, who's actually probably the better ones, but it is difficult. But for you though, what would it mean to like kind of go into a comic book shop and like there on one of the racks is sitting like your first issue?
For me, it would be, other, for lack of a better term, I guess, otherworldly.
Yeah.
And weirdly, it's I don't know if there's a better term, but it's like if I went into a comic shop and I saw my book there, I wouldn't believe it. I'd have to like I myself would have to like pick it up and look at it to make sure that I'm seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
You know?
That validation. And I think that comes down to a big thing is it's almost hard to believe like you finally made it. Like you're in the industry and like it's a validating experience to be like, all right, well, like I'm a part of this.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy doing, self-distribution right now, just, work myself handling the inventory, the packing. Like I'm totally happy doing that right now. And I would like to do more, with the comic book, not just, packing and selling and all that stuff, which is great. But I've seen a lot of, there's like organizations that they go out to like hospitals and visit kids. And like, I have a friend who is the head of a company, of a nonprofit. They're called Comic Care.
Yeah.
Where those guys, they go in the hospitals in their costumes, in their cosplays, and they'll like visit with the kids and give kids comic books. I'm just like, you know what, that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And I have a little bit of a rapport with my local children's hospital, which is Children's National in Washington D.C. I'm going to be in contact with them soon, maybe because I want to try to maybe get in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'll be a really great time. I think once you kind of get, and everyone loves receiving a comic book. I've never met a kid that is like, oh no, a comic book. Especially one that they can, especially if they're affected by any type of new disability or something that really been holding them down. Seeing a superhero that also kind of tackles those same problems but rises to the occasion, I think that's what the whole point of a comic book is to inspire someone to look past the limitations. Exactly.
Yeah, I actually, so again, sorry I keep going back to the con from the weekend, but I actually another person, another highlight. Like this was the highlight of my weekend, to be completely honest. I was looking around, saying hi to the people, and this father comes over with his two kids, and one of them is in a wheelchair, and this kid maybe like 6, 7. Little kid, and I'm talking to him like, hey, how are you? How you doing? How you enjoying the con? Blah blah blah. And then I start going into my pitch about what my comic book is about, and I say I talk about how my hero has spina bifida.
Yep.
And the look, the kid, I look at the kid, and he's got the biggest smile on his face. Like the expression grinning from ear to ear. This kid was almost literally grinning from ear to ear. And I look over at the dad, and he goes, he has spina bifida too. And I was like, oh wow, okay. That experience made my whole weekend, but it was also the most surreal moment I think I've ever had.
Yeah, no, that's like I said, that's like I said, a validating experience. I mean, that's kind of what you set out to do, and like there you are doing it. So that's great. So for everyone listening, obviously now we're ready to hear. So what is your story? So we got 2 issues out already, and a
No,
third on the way.
one issue out. One
Okay,
issue
we got
out. The
one.
other issue 2 is in the illustration phase.
Okay,
So I am speculating that it'll be ready and out by January or February of next year.
okay. So what's the title of the story, and what's the general synopsis of the story?
So the general synopsis of issue 1 is our hero, whose name is WhirlWheel. I kind of went with the alliteration, kind of like Wonder Woman. I went with WhirlWheel. He already has his powers in this first issue. He's already fighting crime. He basically he's going to lunch with a work friend of his, and he hears it through a TV that there's a crime going on, bank robber. And so our hero has to excuse himself, and he goes and he changes into his suit, and he goes and he fights crime. He goes and fights the robber, who is actually he's not just a normal human. This robber also has abilities. So he can't just fight him off like a regular person. He has to actually really work for it.
Yeah. Now in your story, so is this was meta kind of the meta human kind of thing always like part of your storyline? Because I know sometimes when people make stories, it's usually like a decision, like do we keep it grounded and keep like everyone
So
just like super strong, or with the
yeah,
meta, like introducing that?
Okay. So the way I've been telling the story, for to people to get my pitch, I guess, to kind of get into it, is that he was born with a disability, but he did not. He was not born with powers. He acquired his powers after a tragic accident in a medical facility, and that's where he got his powers. And once he discovered that he had power, he's been fighting crime.
And then, so what kind of power set does he possess?
He has super strength and super speed. It's kind of like the Flash and kind of like Superman or Captain America type.
Okay.
In terms of the strength.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. I did kind of went more into like the Captain America thing, because
okay.
My hero also has a shield. He has 3 shields actually. He has a shield on his chest emblem is a shield that he can take it off and it grows into like a full size shield. And also on his wheels where his spokes would be, is he can take those off and be shields as well.
Nice. All right. So when writing this story, and again, obviously you had the idea for a while. Did you know the setting and the villains when you had this prompt, or was that kind of more the harder part now, was taking the prompt that you had and now developing a world kind of around it?
Well, it was the figuring out the villain, and the figuring out the villain was something that I came up with later. But I always knew, in terms of like the setting, the world, that it was going to be this world here, right here in Fairfax, Virginia, is where I have set my story. And so I always knew that that's where I wanted, that to be. But in terms of like my villain, I didn't know that until later. And actually, this bank robber character in the first issue is not the big bad. He's more of a means to an end, to an even bigger, yet to be fully revealed big bad.
Awesome. Um, Now, when creating this character, did you go through like how many was it kind of right away where you said, like I wanted him to be super strong, super fast with the shields, or did you kind of go through a couple different kind of versions where you're like, well, I could do just super speed, or I could do more Batman-esque with more gadgets? Like, was there a lot of versions of this, or you just right away just I want to go super speed, super strength?
It was definitely more towards figuring it out. Not, it wasn't always super strength and super speed. Super strength and super speed were always like in my head, but it was like, but what else can I do? Like,
Yeah.
let me see if I can do something else that's better, or because in my head I was like, super strength, super speed, it's been done, but so let me see what else I can do with it. And I was going, and I was like, okay, maybe he can do this, maybe he could do that. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? No, super strength and super speed, those work just fine, and they actually tell the story that I want to tell the best, because um kind of going off of, again, the only big wheelchair user super that we have being Professor X. He has, his telekinesis or whatever, right? And so I was like, but we don't have any one like that has like physical powers, like super
Yeah.
strength or super speed. So I was like, you know what? No, maybe I should do that.
Yeah, change it up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, at the beginning, you said that you were working on this. I know we've talked a little bit on Instagram when we were getting on here. You have quite a few plans, though. Creating maybe a possible universe along
Yes,
with the book.
that exactly. Yes, that exactly. I'm planning on creating my own universe. I'm planning at least, because this is a tentative. This is a penciled in number, but it's always subject to change. Right now, I want to do like 6 different heroes. Some of them will have power, some of them won't. But I want to create like a whole universe of heroes with different disabilities,
Yeah.
and I want to feature not just physical disabilities. I want to have like mental disabilities and emotional disabilities as well showcased. And so, yeah, like right now, I'm writing the script for the first issue in a whole new series that's related, where the hero has cerebral palsy and uses crutches to get around. But she was adopted by a clan of ninja as a baby, and they taught her how to use her crutches to, move
Yeah.
in a a ninja esque fashion, and taught her how to fight.
Awesome. Now, are you going to write all of these stories, or is this something you are looking as you create this universe, possibly finding kind of like-minded individuals, kind of to jump in maybe, and like, you take a character, or let's co-write this, especially fellow disabled creators and writers that are looking for that chance to, get their story told.
I definitely want to work with other writers and other artists to create these stories. You know, this first issue that I'm doing all of the writing, and I do have an artist lined up. But you know, but like you said, I would like to find like-minded individuals. Uh, especially disabled individuals who disabled artists, disabled writers, and just see what they can do. So they really, I just want to, I want to share the wealth, and I want to. I mean, could I do all of it? Maybe, but I mean, why not share the wealth, right?
Yeah, of course.
Give
Different
give give
perspectives. Yeah,
give more of a voice to the rest of the community.
yeah.
Because
Now I
that's
know
really what
obviously.
this series is about, is giving a voice to the disabled community.
Yeah. Now I know this is a tentative. Obviously, this is future plans, something that you are hoping to do. Now, when people make a universe, and especially in today's comic series, we no longer are kind of going for like that, Chris Claremont run or something where it's like 400 issues for like one arc. I think a lot of people are being like, oh, I'm gonna do 10 issues of this, 10 issues of that. Like that completes the arc. Then we move on. Is this
Right.
something you are looking to make kind of a long form comic series, or is this something you would like to do kind of 4 issues, 4 issues, 4 issues, phase 1 done, go to phase 2, and then maybe like 5, 6, 8, 4, close that one?
Uh, Honestly, I'm kind of I'm figuring that out as I go, because like as of right now, I only have one issue of this first series out. I'm the second issue is being drawn right now, so it's still like really early to kind of know uh, how the story is going to go. Um, I do think it's going to be a little bit more drawn out,
Okay,
but we'll see what happens.
definitely. Now, obviously, you've had a lot of experience in the superhero genre. For some reason, if you decided after, this one character, you said, you know what, I'm gonna take a little break. Maybe I won't come back to the superhero. Like, I just want to take a break. Do you think there'd be another genre of comic you'd be interested in doing? I know a lot of comic books here, they get, I think, almost overwhelmed by like how much of the superhero genre, like they have to like do good, save the world. I do feel
Right.
like that's why a lot of them go to kind of horror comics afterwards, because they're allowed to kind of now explore the opposite of being good to evil. Is
Right.
there a genre that you would be like, if you were to take a break from this or finish it, that you would like to try writing after doing all this?
I definitely would want to do something a lot, but I know technically, superheroes does fall under the fantasy umbrella. But if there was a way that I could do like a story that was more fantastical, more like along the lines of something like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, something with
Yeah,
like mystical
high
creatures,
high fantasy.
high fantasy,
Yeah,
exactly. If I think that would be something that I would probably want to go into, creating a comic about that is high fantasy.
definitely. Yeah, I mean that's always fun to do. I think for a lot of us, especially all of us that grew up in kind of mid 80s to 90s. I mean, we all, Lord of the Rings was probably one of the best things that we all got to go see in theater. So I think there's a lot of obsession with that, as we keep moving forward, to go back to that.
Right.
Um, One last question, kind of before we start getting information about where to get these comics, where to follow you.
Right.
And I'd like to always find out from everyone, if you had the chance to bring one character from either Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, and they said, you know what, we'll let you use it for a couple issues. You have the complete IP. You just can't kill the character, but you can use the character. Do you have one you would like to put in your comic books?
Oh, that is a good question, because I'm a fan. I mean, I am a fan of so many heroes. Batman has always been, well, not always, but definitely in my older years, Batman has always been one that I'm just like, I like you. I really like you because you literally could be anybody.
Yep.
Superman was one that I always liked as a kid, growing up. But I think that was a lot of kids growing up. Um, but I think that well, because of certain aspects of this first issue, I think Batman would be an interesting one, and maybe Deadpool could put some interesting humor in there. So Deadpool, I think, would be really interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, you could have Batman design a wheelchair for our superhero with the bat logos as the wheels.
So I actually have a character in this first issue that is very much like a techie, a tech whiz, Batman, Batman-esque, but also kind of
Yeah,
Oracle-esque type. In the first story, she's very tech whiz, and she actually created wheels for my character's wheelchair that they look, like normal wheels, but they're actually outfitted with tires that are they have the look and feel of rubber, but they're actually made out of a material that is heat resistant, so that they don't
nice,
melt under the friction of his speed.
awesome. Yeah, Batman would fit in really well then. All right, for everyone listening that is interested in what you're doing, and they want to kind of see what you're up to, what's the name of your comic book? Where's the best place to find you, and where's the best place to get a copy right now?
So the name of my comic book, at least this first one, is called WhirlWheel Hostage. Is what I'm calling it. And the best place to find my comic book and anything else that I happen to have would be on my website, which is disabledcomics.myshopify.com. In terms of where to find me and like where to like keep more updated on what's coming up, you can find me at on Instagram at disabled_comics_, and that's all lowercase.
Definitely. And for everyone listening, we will have him tagged in the post. So you go ahead and just click on that, and that'll take you right to his page. So I know we said second issue is off at illustration, and we are expecting that later this year, early next year.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Well, everyone, be on the lookout. Follow him, Disabled Comics on Instagram. Go to his Shopify. Get in on the comic now. Alex, thanks for coming on. Thanks for describing your comic book, and we'll keep tabs as you keep moving forward. Good luck, and we look forward to seeing your work. Everyone listening, hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed the show. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.